Hey everyone, this is Phillip, and he is a classmate of mine at Wharton, and we're just going to be discussing a little bit about his career and why he decided to attend Penn, and hopefully have a pretty wide-ranging conversation. Phillip, can you just start off by introducing yourself and kind of giving everyone in the audience, or our viewers, a bit about your background?
Yeah, for sure. Hey everyone, my name is Phillip. I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I ended up going to Wake Forest University for my undergrad and did a one-year master's program at the University of Virginia, where I really was able to get a master's in commerce and get a better sense of business. And just to backtrack a little bit, one of the reasons why I wanted to get that master's degree was I actually co-ran a business in my undergrad, which was called Wake Wash. It's a laundry delivery service that washed, folded, and saran wrapped people's clothes and delivered it to them in 48 hours, which really, sparked my interest in not only business, but also getting a better sense of operations, supply chains, human capital, and a whole host of other topics. Through that, degree at Wake, as well as the one at UVA, I was able to land a job in Nashville, Tennessee, where I spent the last 5 years prior to coming to Philadelphia. First working at the University Endowment for Vanderbilt, and then moving to a private equity firm, as well as my final year being at a consulting firm in their strategy and performance practice.
Awesome. And so interesting to hear that you worked on Wake Wash, your kind of laundry service in college, because I think personally, I've always wanted to start a business in college, but I never could get an idea of what to even start. So can you tell us about how that idea formed and kind of where you took it to? I think a lot of our viewers might be kind of interested in starting their own businesses.
Yeah, for sure. So candidly, we didn't completely come up with the idea ourselves. It was already a very small business on campus that we took over after those individuals graduated. But what we did was really create an unlock and figuring out, okay, we're not actually selling to the students on campus. We're really selling to the parents. So what that meant was coming to freshman orientation and telling, the parents of freshmen and other classmates, hey, we know that Ben might be a little bit lazy with doing his own laundry, even though there's free washers and dryers in every dormitory at Wake. But he might want to bring his clothes back for you, mom and dad, to do over fall break, Thanksgiving, etc. And you don't want that. You want to, as we like to say, dress for success by having a service where we pick it up, we'll wash it, fold it, give it back to them in 48 hours, and make sure that the process is pretty seamless, as well as doing laundry. We also did alterations and dry cleaning for an extra cost.
And how was it managing that plus all of the schoolwork? Were there ever times where you were even working more on Wake Wash versus school?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the best part about working on Wake Wash during school was we had a minor in the entrepreneurship and social enterprise department, where I took classes that primarily focused on what are some day-to-day challenges of my business? So luckily I was able to get a couple of grades while running Wake Wash, because the classes were about, some people in our, university that own small businesses. Whether it be, okay, how do we, fill this gap in workers where we need people to pick up the bags? How do we negotiate some of the contracts with the middleman that's really doing the laundry themselves, and all of these type of issues? I never actually did the literal laundry myself.
But you know how to do laundry now.
I do. Yes. If anyone needs any help doing laundry or dry cleaning, I am your guy.
Sounds good. So you seem after selling you said you sold your business.
Yeah,
right?
I sold my business.
So after that, you worked at Vanderbilt after college in their endowment fund, right?
After I did the one-year program at UVA.
Got it. Okay. So then in the endowment fund, can you kind of go over what your responsibilities were and any kind of pleasant surprises at the job that really stand out to you?
Sure. So after finishing up the one-year program at UVA, I really felt like I wanted to do something in the financial world. And candidly, I didn't know too much about endowments when applying for these jobs. But they really sold me on the idea that you can really learn the whole spectrum of the financial world and get a lot of different insights that you might not get doing investment banking, or you're working on financial models all the time and not really being in these meetings. So I joined the private team, which focused on venture capital, private equity, and real assets, which was split between natural resources and real estate. So my day-to-day jobs was, looking at potential opportunities at the fund level. So we weren't making individual investments into companies, but more the private equity funds and venture capital funds themselves. Looking at our portfolio to see how it's progressing, going to, different AGMs or annual meetings for our different managers, as well as, taking notes on different things that's happening in the world, sending it to my bosses, as well as writing some investment memos that would eventually be sent to our investment committee. But to your question about what really pleasantly surprised me was just the amount of access I was able to get as, a young gun coming out of school. I was able to speak to people that are literal billionaires or Joe Montana or other, cool people that wouldn't often give the time of day to someone in their early 20s. But because Vanderbilt's endowment invested in their groups or looked at investing, tens of millions of dollars, I would go into meetings where my voice was really heard, but also sometimes even lead the meetings themselves.
Any cool stories from any of the meetings with like the billionaires, Joe Montana, like anyone?
Definitely there was a funny story where, one person who was extremely wealthy was complaining about the traffic in New York City. And he talked about, well, I don't understand why people are so upset. New York traffic isn't too bad. And obviously everyone else around the room disagreed. So someone asked, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
How do you get around? And he said, by helicopter.
Oh.
So it's, traffic's not too bad in any city if you get around by helicopter.
Okay.
So sometimes there's a little bit of disconnect, but oftentimes it's just really interesting to hear people's perspectives on so many wide ranging industries and getting really deep about, their specific area of focus.
And with these investors and kind of wealthy individuals that you interacted with a lot, do you feel like, because I think on the outside, people might think that they might be really full of themselves or be, I don't know, like there might be all these kind of like negative stereotypes. But do you think that there were any positive kind of like similarities or common denominators that a lot of them had, or were there any particular attributes that you found from these people that you worked with that, kind of like were successful in some way? Was there anything that stood out to you with all of those clients?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously in anything you do, there'll be people that, are a little standoffish or difficult to work with. But I think even, between those people and the really nice people that I learned a lot about and from, I think they're just really passionate about what they work in, right? So what our philosophy is to figure out, usually earlier stage managers, maybe a fund 2 or 3, where there's a little bit of a track record, but they're still kind of having a chip on their shoulder. They're still hungry, but also are, very specific in the area that they're focusing in, whether it be, okay, I only want to do software investing, or I only want to focus on, esoteric real estate ideas, where they've just become a master of their craft and a pretty limited scope. But, that makes them a big fish in a small pond, rather than say a generalist fund that, invests in everything between, manufacturing and software and everything in between.
Got it. And now actually switching gears a little bit, going more into your private equity side. Can you tell us why you made that transition, and how is that transition going from basically being a fund where you may have received money from funds like private equity funds?
We invested in the private
equity funds, and then now you actually joined one. So how was that transition, and what kind of role did you play?
Yeah, so I was really blessed that during my time at Vanderbilt, it was a 3-year analyst program where they expect you to leave.
Oh, okay.
And they're really encouraging and helping us find different roles after we left. So I used a lot of their network and even had one-on-one meetings with the deputy CIO about where I wanted my career to go. And, the deputy CIO at the time was a little bit more of a risk taker than I would say most people are, and said, hey, this is your one-shot opportunity to try to go to the buy side and what it's like to be on the other side of the table. You can always go back to endowment investing, But if you stick with endowment investing for now, it's a lot harder to go to the buy side when you're 30, 32, etc. So shoot your shot. And if you don't like it, you'll have a different perspective that most people on the LP side have, which is definitely unique and great. But if you do like it, then you could stay on the buy side and you'll always have that on your resume. So actually, the group that I ended up joining was a group that we looked at investing in. So I had a little bit of a cheat sheet, unfortunately, where I had some of the answers to the test on how they view themselves, how they market themselves. I was able to sit on some calls with their managing partner, and how he spoke about the firm. So when I saw that they had an investment analyst position open, I was able to kind of had a standing start in the interview process. And in terms of my roles there, I would say it was primarily sourcing opportunities that focused on software. And if, an opportunity gained some legs, doing some due diligence with some senior members on the team to figure out if it would be an interesting investment opportunity based on our criteria or playbooks, as well as sometimes doing a little bit of entrepreneurial operations work with some of the portfolio companies, because half of our firm is former operators, heads of marketing, sales, customer success. So kind of learning from them and, helping out where I can, where they needed me across the portfolio from time to time.
Got it. And can you dive a little bit deeper into what a day in the life might look like? Because I think private equity is a kind of esoteric-ish industry. And so there's not a lot of detail about what each day is like. And to preface, I think probably every day is very different.
Yeah.
So anything you can provide in terms of that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would also say that my experience was a little different in the sense that I joined during the pandemic. So I never actually ended up working full time in the office. So unfortunately, my day was mostly, waking up from my bed, going to my kitchen, logging on to my, workstation, then, primarily focusing on, okay, like, let's look at our portfolio. One, are there any portfolio companies that I'm kind of working with right now that might need some, operational help, or we talked about possibly rebranding one of the companies because they were looking to merge with an add-on acquisition and, change the name, really focus on, better, marketing for what the company actually does. But other than that, say like, okay, what are some potential add-on opportunities for some of these portfolio companies? So using tools like Source Scrub or Grata to find different companies across the entire universe, because our mandate was software, but outside of that, it was pretty broad. So we could look at companies across the globe. We looked at, we owned a company in Cluj, Romania, or we looked at businesses in Southeast Asia. So looking at them from the lens of like, okay, does this company meet the certain criteria that we're interested in? Does this company have a certain functionality software wise that could be additive to our portfolio company? And then 3, do you think you can actually buy this company at a great price? I think a huge misconception in private equity is that there's not enough companies for them to buy, or that, these groups often allocate capital extremely quickly. At least in my case, there was a huge universe of companies, but in reality, picking companies that fit our specific definition of what we were looking for was much more challenging. That, we had a certain tier system of how we looked at companies, and not many got turned into the more qualified deals that got people excited about learning more.
So then, number of hours wise, then like how many hours were you working per week?
I would say, around like 65 to 75. It just depends on the week. I think we had a really good work-life balance at my firm, and people were extremely friendly. So I think that they were very open to, hey, like, something has come up, or I really need to take a day off. But I know that's not oftentimes the case.
Got it. And so as you were working in private equity, I'm sure you gained a ton of new skills.
Yeah.
Are there any skills in particular that you got throughout your experience that you really value? And what are some of the key ones that you stepped away from the experience really feel like you're very, I don't know, fortunate to have gotten the opportunity to learn?
Yeah, I think like one skill that I'm really fortunate is the how to really look at a company and look at the nitty gritty details to see what the value is, and more importantly, not in the terms of value for the post sale, but also where can we find the operational areas that we can improve the company that perhaps other investors might not see. And I think, when you first start at any job, like especially in an investing job, you think every opportunity presented to you is awesome. You're like, wow, like this is a great idea. Or even at the endowment, like this is a great fund. This is a great fund. Look at these returns. But being able to kind of have those reps and at bats where you can kind of drill down and say, okay, well, let's look at their performance. And oh, well, everything has skyrocketed during, COVID, and obviously software mostly did pretty well. So let's kind of look back historically on why this company, struggled before COVID. Or, okay, like these, revenue numbers and EBITDA numbers look pretty good, but when you drill down further, they have a huge customer concentration that you might have overlooked because you're not paying attention to some of those type of details, or they might have really bad retention rates. So kind of when you originally kind of have all these puzzle pieces and you think it's a beautiful puzzle, but being able to kind of put the pieces together and really see the picture at hand and say, wait a second, this is actually not the picture that I want. Or wow, I'm like really excited, I really want to take all these other pieces and see what we can make out of it. And any missing pieces, how can I be helpful and add, any type of value to grow the business moving forward?
So understanding the nitty gritty details as to what makes a fund or company, I guess it's more on the private equity side, what makes a company actually an attractive investment, and really diving deep into the details.
Definitely.
Understanding how to do that. Yeah, I think that's a pretty hard skill to kind of gain from any industry, really.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the viewers out there who are interested in private equity, do you have any tips on how to break into the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. It is pretty tough, and it's not like I was someone that was getting a lot of job offers left and right in private equity. I would say that it's very much a hustle type culture. Reach out to groups that you're interested in, perhaps not at the partner level, but at the lower levels, and be additive in your conversations. No one wants to help someone out when they just email like, hey, can I have a job, or how can I get a job? You really want to be, building these type of relationships by saying, hey, I know you have a company in X space. I read this really interesting article about your company, one of its competitors, or even the space in general. I thought you should read it, and really not expect anything in return. And building those type of relationships, I think over time, people will say, okay, this guy or girl is really committed to the space. They really like learning about it. They oftentimes are reading about it in their free time, and they, think of me when they find something interesting. So when I find something interesting, whether it be at my firm or somewhere else, I'm going to think of them. And I think that that's really helped pave it forward a lot. So even if, say my firm passed a company that we didn't think was a perfect fit for us, and I would talk to a friend that was at another private equity firm that had a similar thesis. I'd be like, hey, you should look at this one. I think that, for X, Y, and Z, it could be interesting, but candidly, we passed for A, B, C. And I think, paving it forward, like in anything in life, will pay dividends in the end.
And were there any resources in particular you kind of studied, or did you kind of use your experience from the endowment fund to really kind of already know what to prepare for your interviews?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to just read as much as I could about the firm in general, as well as some of the competitor firms. I know my case was a little bit unique because I had some extra access to resources due to my job at the university endowment. But also, there's a lot of free resources out there that I think are really helpful, in whether it be building out models or just learning about the specific industry itself. Again, I would say that just having the type of attention to detail and looking at specific areas that you're personally interested in will, help a lot more. I don't think you should be, applying to a lot of firms that focus on industrials if you're interested in, technology related private equity.
Got it. And now shifting more towards like our MBA experience so far. So Phillip is in the Russia track.
Yep.
And I'm on the Korea track, as I mentioned in previous videos. But we're actually working on our master's thesis together, which is like an 80-page kind of document. And we're both part of the Lauder program, which which I have kind of explained in previous videos. But as a really short reminder, it's a 2-year program where you get a master's in international studies and an MBA at Penn. And the master's in international studies kind of focuses on international economics, history, politics, etc. And there's a few more like extra classes and things you have to do throughout the entire experience. And you also have to kind of learn a language. So I have to learn Korean, and Phillip is learning Russian. And so it's been, actually, first of all, like, what got you interested in an MBA overall? And then what got you interested in the Lauder program?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that an MBA would really help me crystallize a lot more of the, business like areas that I wanted to focus on. I think Wharton is really unique in some ways that it's a little more flexible than some other programs like HBS, where, if you waive out of some classes or are able to, focus on a certain major, you can, really take classes on areas that you're interested in. Which is why I thought that if I got into a program like Wharton, it would be really beneficial for my career. And the Lauder program, I think, is really unique and interesting. One, as a heritage speaker of Russian, I candidly am not a good writer of the language, so I wanted to improve on those skills. Because I don't know about you, but I never wrote essays to my parents in Russian. I'm not sure about you.
I've only wrote like cards to my parents in for their birthdays, and it's like a kindergartner could have written a better card because I have like a ton of spelling errors and stuff.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Well, I mean, I didn't know how to write Russian very much at all, and in this past month that we've been here, I've had to learn how to write Russian in cursive. So Russian's only written in Cyrillic cursive, and I just handed in my introduction paper, which is only 2 pages, but still, that from 0 to that, I'm pretty excited about the progress we can make over 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and plus the conversations I feel like we're having at Lauder is really unique, especially with how international everyone is. And I think Professor Haas said it best, right? We're all very different, but in a lot of ways, we're very much similar. So I'm really enjoying my time at the program. Awesome. And Lauder as well.
I got to clarify, by the way, kindergartners and first grade Korean students are really smart. So they can speak really well, like write really well anyway. But focusing back onto your experience so far at Penn, what do you feel like are your first impressions so far? Any pleasant surprises or challenges you face? It can be anything in the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, candidly, I'm just surprised how go everything is. I mean, right now we're filming and it's, almost 10 p.m. And this whole day I've been just doing either Lauder work or work preparing for immersion. And this is a day off. Tomorrow we have a 7:50 a.m. Class photo that rolls straight into a 9 a.m. class, and we end at 5 p.m. And that's with an hour and a half, 2-hour break. So it's just constantly doing things, whether it be academic or social. That's been a big surprise. I feel like even in my working life, I had a little bit more time to breathe, whether I wanted to take a quick, 30-minute run or do some laundry, without wake wash. But now it's, a lot more structured, which is taking some time to get used to.
Yeah, and not only do we end at 5 tomorrow, we also have final next day and I have to write 2 essays. I don't know, I think I have to write one longer one.
We actually have the 5:30 review session.
Oh yeah,
so our day ends at 6:30 tomorrow.
Yeah. So there's a ton that comes at you at once. And do you have any plans of what you want to do short-term after MBA or maybe long-term in your career? Have you had any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So after the private equity firm, I actually joined a consulting firm in their strategy and performance practice. To really get a better insight on how the operations of some companies work, as well as what it would be like to work with some C-suite executives on a more one-on-one basis. because my ultimate goal is to actually start a search fund and acquire a business primarily in the software space. Really, that's twofold. One, I think that I'd love to use some of the lessons I've learned from, consulting, private equity, Wakewash in general, all my other, career stops to grow a business. But also, I want to work in software where I can hopefully use some of my Russian language skills with developers that are primarily based in Eastern Europe. Whether or not that will be possible, I'm unsure. But I mean, if I'm able to blend my language with, working in a business world where I can acquire a business at, 29, 30, I think that would be, though a little unique, pretty interesting and different.
And can you actually, can you actually help explain what a search fund is? Because I don't think everyone knows what that is.
Yeah, sure. So the search fund model, or entrepreneurship through acquisition, or ETA, they are a premise that I believe was started at Stanford Business School, where, high achieving young individuals are funded or do a self-funded search. And by funded, I mean by groups out, that are looking for these type of individuals, primarily from MBA programs or, from top flight, career programs as well, where they allow them to take some time to find a business, do the search portion. If a business fits certain criteria, everyone is, between the investors and the searcher is in agreement. They end up acquiring the business, installing the searcher as a CEO, and having them run the business for a certain amount of time before selling the business down the road. The business is owned partially by the searcher with certain step ups in place based on their performance and time, but kind of gives that individual equity in a smaller size company, when oftentimes most people would, just be a regular worker for a much larger corporation rather than having any type of equity whatsoever. So it could be something of interest for people that are interested in entrepreneurship, but might be a little bit skittish on, taking the full-time jump and starting something completely from scratch. And taking something that is already somewhat in place, has a name, has employees, has some customers, has, a little bit of revenue, etc., and growing it from there. Somewhat similar of what I did in Wakewash, but I don't think I want to do something laundry related again.
I see, all laundried out. But yeah, thanks for explaining, because I had heard of search funds before. I think it's a really, really cool opportunity for a lot of people, but it's something that not a lot of people know about. But now kind of going more towards some personal-ish related questions, just so the viewers can get to know you a little bit better. First one is, if you could go back in college, your former self, like what kind of advice would you give yourself?
I think that, I'm sure a lot of people say this, don't stress too much. I think that oftentimes people go on this like hedonistic treadmill where they are looking at a goal, whether it be getting into a college or getting into an MBA program or getting X job. And they don't really think about, okay, what happens afterwards? They're like running towards this goal and they aren't completely satisfied for, life after that goal is achieved. They have to figure out another goal. And it's constantly not being able to sit down and appreciate what you have. Because, like I said, when I first went to college, I had no idea what a university endowment was. If you told me in college or, in high school or even at UVA that I'll spend 5 years of my life in Nashville, Tennessee, a city I had visited once before because my best friend went to Vanderbilt, I would say, you're kidding me. Like, there's no way. So I think that even though, you might not, follow a direct path, I think that everything kind of happens for a reason. And as long as you are cognizant of why you're doing something and why you are excited about it, rather than saying, I want to achieve this goal because everyone says it's, worth achieving this goal, then I think things will hopefully work out for the best.
Got it. And kind of related to that note, I think there's a lot of kind of values you mentioned as you kind of explaining of like having gratitude. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Do you feel like you have any personal values that really have guided you throughout your entire experience that allowed you to not really focus on the hedonistic treadmill, or kind of maintain that focus on being grateful? What's been kind of like your compass throughout not only your career, but your personal life?
Yeah, I mean, there's a really good like tidbit from Arnold Schwarzenegger that talks about how he hates being called a self-made man because, you know, no one's a self-made man. There's so many people out there that open doors for you, that give you these type of opportunities, that you really should be, you know, thankful for them. So that's really, you know, allowed me to kind of think about things of like, okay, like how can I pave it forward for other people? Or, you know, even in my regular day-to-day life where I, you know, try to stay in touch with people, and obviously it gets harder and harder as you get older. Just saying, okay, you know, if I find something interesting, like let me send it to them and let me, you know, reach out to them and find a way to, whether or not it's actually useful for them, just stay connected. And it kind of goes back to, you know, not being a self-made man. You'd be surprised the type of responses that you get from other people. Even when I posted about, you know, getting into an MBA program, people I had never, you know, heard from for years would reach out and say, hey, like I used to live in Philadelphia, or my friend lives in Philadelphia. Let me tell you about XYZ restaurant. And it's just super cool to see so many people being able to, you know, give back to you after you, you know, just randomly reaching out to them, or just saying, hey, like, you know, I want to just help you out because I noticed that you're, you know, living an experience that either I went through or I know someone going through as well. And that's been awesome.
But that actually concludes the interview.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much, Phillip. We went through, was it private equity, endowment funds,
Consulting.
MBA, consulting, laundry. So we went through a lot of stuff, and hope you all found it very useful. And we'll catch you hopefully in the next video. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Bye.